Welcome to the Sustainable Living Podcast. Tips, tools, and tactics for living a heart-centered life that honors Mother Earth and her inhabitants. The information shared on the Sustainable Living Podcast reflects the opinions of host Marianne West, Janice Friant, and their guests. Please use your own discretion in research before applying any information to your individual situation. Now, here are your hosts, Marianne and Janice.
Hello, everyone. We are here together again. It's me, Marianne, and
Janice.
So we really enjoyed our 100th episode, and we decided we want to do this more often. And of course, we always want to hear your feedback. So tell us if you like that. If you like the idea of switching up between an interview show and a show between Janice and myself. So, yeah, tell us what you think. And today, we're going to talk about feminism or something like that, right, Jenny?
Yeah, some version of it.
Right. But before we get into that, we wanted to do a couple more shout out to our listeners because we just are so honored and so pleased that A, you listen to us, and B, you reach out and give us feedback and input, and it's so appreciated. And, every day we learn some new. So that's very exciting to me.
Yeah. And a lot of those things that we learn are from you guys. So keep those tips coming, please.
Absolutely. So I wanted to give a shout out to an Instagram friend, and her name is Candida, and I hope I'm going to pronounce it right. Her handle is EarthHeart9. And we had asked for a sustainability tip, and she was saying, don't throw eggshells away. Pulverize them by wrapping them in newspaper and using a heavy object to smash them into fine shards. Then sprinkle them around plants, because especially plants the snails and the slugs like to eat, because those little critters won't be able to cross the jagged border of the broken eggshells. And in that case, you get to eat your lettuce instead of the snails.
Yeah, very good tip. And there's more, isn't there more to that more benefits on that? Or
Well, yeah. What do you think is the benefit?
My guess would be something about the minerals or the calcium that's in the eggshell would hopefully contribute to the minerals in your soil. Am I right?
Yeah. It takes a while. I mean, they take a long time to break down. So sometimes people say, oh, don't put eggshells in the compost because it will take forever. But eventually they will break down. And since they're already broken into fine, small pieces, it will go faster than if you have a whole eggshell you're going to throw into a compost pile, possibly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it does.
And I've even, I remember when I was pregnant trying to get extra calcium in and actually using eggshells by throwing them in my blender. So a blender might be a way to kind of mush them up as well, though it could grind them into a powder, and then that might defeat the purpose with the snails. So. Right.
So for the snail purposes, they need to be in small pieces, but they need to have the sharp edges. That's what's keeping them from crossing. Okay. But even if it stays not broken down for a long time, eventually it goes into the soil and it creates, to me, any organic matter in the soil, especially when you have soil so depleted of organic matter, is a good idea.
Yeah.
It gives them space, it gives a place for the roots to grow and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay, and here is a short one, and it's one which is very dear to my heart, and this one is from Erica. And she, her Instagram handle is a waste not kind. Come on, tell me, open. I think it's a waste not kind of life. I'm pretty sure. So for some reason, it disappeared on me here, so I can't see it. But I will, a waste not kind of life. And her name is Erica, and she is saying, don't light an empty room. Boom. That's such a good tip.
Yeah, that's you'd think that would be a no-brainer. It'd be so simple that you wouldn't even have to say it. But yeah, it is a very good tip. Remember to turn those lights off. You don't need to be wasting energy with an empty room.
Yeah, so I definitely grew up that you only had light on in a room where you're actually in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in, the States, there are so many appliances, which are, or maybe a TV is not an appliance, but so many people have several TVs going in several rooms, have lights on in several rooms, have the radio going in several rooms, and nobody is there.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it drives me crazy. And actually, my husband is very guilty of that. When he leaves in the morning, I'm taking a tour through the house and I'm turning off lights. I'm turning off,
Yeah.
the TV, which is playing music. And
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and there,
Go ahead.
yeah, speak.
Well, I was
No,
going to
you
say,
speak.
okay, we have these little solar night lights that, they don't use a lot of energy, and when you need light at night, if you walk into it, I'm not sure if it's actually, to tell you the truth, it's not a solar night light, it's just a night light, right? But what it is motion activated, so that when you come into the room, it automatically comes on, and then when you leave, it automatically goes off, which for us is wonderful because it negates often the necessity of turning on a light at all. and it uses very little electricity, so we like those as well.
Right. So this, of course, opens the whole discussions about light bulbs and the different kind of light bulbs, and if the ones which are kind of being sold now, at least in California exclusively, if they have a longer life, if they are just being left on. But that's not what we want to talk about. Some you can think about,
Yeah.
but that's not what we want to talk about today. So, feminism. I'm going to tell you a story, and I tell you why we kind of chose that topic. I mean, it's some which is close to both of our hearts. We are both women, right?
Yeah.
And
But
I think
feminism is a kind of an incendiary topic these days. It actually has been for quite a while. For me, when I was younger, it was always very clear. I was obviously a feminist. I want women to have equal pay and to be treated fairly and all these things, and that's what feminism always implied to me. So that's why I always called myself a feminist. But over the years, there's just been many different kind of interpretations of it. And sometimes I haven't always agreed with people that call themselves feminists and say they're espousing feminism. So I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there. It's a bit of an incendiary topic because I think there's so many different definitions of it these days.
Or interpretations, yeah. So, yeah, feel free to give us your interpretation and what you have to say about it. But be nice, please. I mean, it's any kind of topic where people can get excited. It can bring about strong emotions. And like you said, in the core definition of the word feminism is kind of equal rights. You could say said we as women, as a feminist, are standing for being treated equally. And I think that's kind of the direction I want to go with this conversation. What does equal mean?
Yes.
And kind of what has happened in those years. And we are kind of an age, I feel, where we were very deeply personally involved in that development. Like when I was a teenager, it was like burn your bras, this kind of thing, right? And there was the hippie movement, all those different things, and the idea of feminism and of women's rights has kind of woven into there. And of course, we live in a country where we don't have officially equal rights guaranteed to men and women. That did not pass. And that act was hindered by a woman, which I find very interesting. But back to the original story, which got all of this started. So I met up in San Diego with two really, really lovely fellow female podcasters. And we had a conversation around podcasting and all of those. And one of the ladies was very obviously pregnant. She was like 2 weeks away from having a baby. So, of course, you talk about babies and children and so forth. And it turned out that her podcast is directed towards moms, which are career women and also moms at the same time, and to kind of give hacks and tips how to be a mom and how to be fully present in your world, in the career world as well. So I thought, okay, that's interesting. And both Janice and I have made choices to be with our children when they were little. So I just wanted to give that right away, that we have that bias as our own personal experience. Just to be really clear, there's with any kind of discussion like that, there's a certain emotional element involved, and there's also the element of what we know best involved. And so for us, we have known the way of being a physically present mother. Let's put it that way, because I don't want to say that people which are not physically present all the time with their children are not present with their children, and vice versa, that people who are physically present are necessarily emotional present with their children either. But that's a whole another discussion.
Tell the story, and it will shed light on, I'm sure, why you're saying this.
Right. So I went home to one of the ladies I already had followed her podcast, and her name is Laura Peterson, and Peterson with 2 E's, and her podcast is Copies That Pops. And it's a really good podcast to listen to if you're a podcaster yourself, but she has good tips on online marketing and stuff. So if that is your interest, and I do want to give her a shout out because she is so helpful and caring with so many things. So the other podcast, like I said, is about being a mom. And I went home and I listened to the latest episode, and the episode was all about feeling okay not to see your kid for 5 days of the week and only see them on the weekend, because that's the reality. If you are, especially if you live in an area like San Diego, where your commute might take you an hour or two just because there's so much traffic and everything is far away from each other. And my gut reaction was just, no, this is not okay. It's not okay. And I just felt so strongly about it. And so that's what this episode kind of gave birth to this episode.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done talking. The rest is up to you, Denise.
Okay, well, here we go. Okay, we'll get some interesting comments on this. I hope. We're looking for definite discussion here. So I would say, number one, for me, I feel like people should be allowed to do whatever, really, they should have a lot of freedom in making their own choices about what they're going to do. I'm going to set that up right off the bat. So even though I may believe a certain way is better for me, or even maybe for children in general, it is not my place to tell anybody what they should be doing. However,
even, may I interrupt, even so our whole podcast is like, let's tell you how to be more sustainable in the world.
But we're not saying you should be and you have to be, otherwise you're a bad person, right?
Right.
The point is, we're showing you some options that you can choose, and because the more options you have, the better choices you can make. But also the more information you have, the better choices you can make. And we do know some things about early childhood and how important it is for a child to have strong caregivers that really care about them when they're young. And really, most of the time, that means the parents. Now, obviously, it doesn't always have to be the mother. It could be the father. I have a friend who did that. The mother was a chiropractor. She worked full time. And the dad had a part-time gig, so he could really be home with the kids. To me, that as a mom, I personally would want to be there. But that's a great that's a great option. As long as you have people there that really care about the kids, and you're not giving, the responsibility of raising them to someone that you've just hired, because it's a very, very big deal. Those first 5 years, you just never get those back, and that sets the child up for the rest of their life. And if you look at the way the world is today, so much of the misery that's out there is because so many of us didn't get that attention, that nurturing, that loving care that only a parent can usually provide in those first 5 years. So that, from my perspective, it's feminism is not so much about, the individual, establishing their, need to have everything they want right now. It's about being able to choose, have many choices, choose from among them, be supported in that, but also see. My version of this would be a workplace that's child-friendly, options that give the mom the ability to work from home. That's true, in my opinion, that's true feminism, because you're changing the society to fit so that there are more options for women and more options for them to take care of their children the way they want to. So that's my 2 cents here to begin with.
Okay, so yeah, you went into a direction in the answer I strongly want to go with this whole podcast. Just about the early childcare, I'm doing some podcasting shout outs today because I listen to a lot of podcasts, so I get a lot of my information and thought-provoking moments from listening to a podcast. And one of them is called Adoptees On by Haley, and I'm going to butcher her last name. But if we are going to link it in the show notes. And this is actually a show for people which have been adopted and what they're going through. So I have not been adopted, and it has been so interesting to me to listen to that show. And one thing which is going across for a lot of the people which have been adopted is that sense of loss. And in one of the shows, she mentioned that there's actually been studies made that children experience, or babies which are being removed from their mothers, experience this grief and shock and feeling of insecurity, which really is something we all felt strongly about in the Leche League, about being together, the child and the mother, that the biorhythm is the same, that the baby knows the mother's voice and heartbeat, and other caregivers, obviously, which are a lot in the life of the mother during the baby's growing in utero. That said, I think where I wanted to direct our conversation is in the early days of feminism. I think we set up a model to be equal to men, which is not really equal. The idea was, well, we can work just as hard as men, and we can hold the same jobs as men, and we can, even so we still get paid less for the same jobs. That hasn't changed yet. And more women are graduating from college now than men are, and are in all kinds of sports, including boxing. And so we have been kind of pushing into, yes, we can do all of those things. And I think we have beautifully shown, I mean, I don't box, I don't mean Janice and I, but us as the female part of society, that we can rise to all of those occasions. But we kind of have pushed under the rug that we are actually different people. Male and females are different. And it's not a prejudice anymore. I mean, studies have shown that our brains work differently, that, a lot of things work differently. And I think what we have done is, instead of making a value judgment about whoever we are equally important. We have tried to mold ourselves into men with boobs, or
Yes.
however you want to
Yeah.
say that.
It's not.
And
You go ahead.
yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, it's not equal if we, as women, are still trying to fit into a male box. That's not equal. I mean, yeah, we can do it, but should we? That's not equal. That still says society favors that male box, and we all have to try and fit in it. Why can't we expand the box to have masculine and feminine both equally valued, the masculine and feminine traits, whether you're a man or a woman? We all need to be balanced. We all need to have masculine and feminine traits. We become much better, more productive members of society if we can do a variety of things. It's this idea that certain acts are higher and valued more because they're the masculine things, and not valued when they're feminine. In my opinion, it is society that needs to become more feminized. And that means, in my view, that we recognize these things that women value and always have for millennia. We've always valued the family. We've always valued raising children. We've always valued. These are not bad things. These are good things, and they should be more highly valued and of an equal value to these bringing home the bacon kinds of things. That's my view. And I remember, just to give you a visual, I remember a long time ago, Saturday Night Live did a sketch years ago, probably decades ago, about women lawyers that were in a courtroom arguing a case, right? And they had babies, that they were breastfeeding while they were arguing the case. And it was, so funny. Ha ha, feminism gone crazy, whatever. In my view, that's how society should be,
Well, there was a politician in New Zealand, and she ended up nursing her baby while being on the news or something. And to me, it was like, yes, that's what we are talking about. That we can be moms and we can powerful women at the same time.
Yeah.
And, and at the same time, we have pushed men into this other department where, so a lot of men still don't get family leave in their jobs. And I mean, family leave, don't even get me started. So 6 weeks people get in, it's ridiculous.
Right.
In 6 weeks, your body hasn't even healed,
Right.
Let alone you have adjusted to suddenly having this whole new being in your life and being responsible for. And, and I think you said like a key point that we don't value raising children, because coming from Germany, and I can't really speak about everything which is current here now because I've gone for a long time, but moms still get at least a year of their job guaranteed. People get money from the government for each child because it's recognized that having children has extra expenses, has extra all kinds of stuff. I always say my wrinkles are due to having children and sleepless nights and worries and, just stuff. There is a different level of experience you have when you have children. And I don't know where my thought was really leading me. I was going to say that men don't really have the chance built in to be as present in their families as they want to. And women are going into that direction of the male model of it being so separated. And that's why I love where you were going to really have a feminist idea of a woman being able to show up equally in the world. For one, I think so this is like a little side thing here, but there is almost like a little fight and status fight going on between the stay-at-home mom and the working mom. Like each thinks of the other, whatever they're thinking, like, oh, they go away and, so yeah. And we need to stop that too, because I feel it's valuable to have the choice to stay home and raise your children if that is what you want to do, but to also have the choice to follow a career your heart loves if that is what you want to do, and then have things in place to be able to do that.
Right.
And to me, having to put your kid for 14 hours into childcare so you can commute to your job, get ready for that job first, and then work it, and then commute home,
Yeah.
that's not the solution, in my opinion.
Well, it's not sustainable. I mean, bottom line, it really isn't, because we just really have to think about our children. This is the thing. I mean, oh my goodness, it's so sad how our children have gotten the short shrift for so long. Now, okay, granted, we are living in very difficult times right now. And most people, both parents have to work most of the time. Unfortunately, but on the other hand, not always. For instance, I have a friend whose daughter is working as a nanny for a very, very wealthy couple. And they have 3 beautiful, gorgeous children. And the mom hardly ever sees them. She doesn't work. She doesn't work. She's doing, society kinds of events and getting her nails done and all these other things. And basically this young girl in her 20s who they've just hired for, I don't know, $17 an hour is raising all of their children. And the children have such issues you wouldn't believe, because they're not getting what they need emotionally. So it shows, but I guess I bring this up because even though so many of us have to work, and it breaks us apart to have to leave our children with, daycare providers, often it is not the case. It's not about finances. It's about some kind of strange idea of status, or I don't know what. I know for me, I remember when I first had my kids, I was at the very beginning of my career. I had been graduated from college for a while. I was starting to be a journalist, and boy, I was a go-getter wanting to do all this stuff. And I thought for sure that once my first child was born, that I was going to go back to work. I was going to have 6 months to a year maybe with my daughter, and then I was going to go back to work. Once I had that little baby in my arms, whatever it was, hormones or Mother Nature, for me, it kicked in, and I couldn't leave her. And so we made huge sacrifices. I mean, we didn't have insurance, which I don't recommend, but we didn't have insurance. My husband's job was very seasonal, so we actually had to put our mortgage on a credit card for 3 months of the year when there was no work for him. But we never looked back. We still count that, me being home with the kids, as one of the best decisions we ever made. We feel really good about what we did with them.
Yeah, I have a similar story too. I still remember when I was pregnant, how I was making plans, how we can share childcaring so we can do all those other things with other people. And then once the baby was there, it was like, no.
Right.
Yeah, but again, that's very individual. But part of it too is, did you have a home birth with your first child?
No, I didn't. Only my second.
Yeah, but I ended up having all my babies at home.
Wow.
And I don't know what's going on now in the birthing world, because that's not where I hang out anymore. But there certainly was the tendency in the years to take the babies away and not allow that bonding which happens. And there is such a small window for that. But we are dragging into or going off into a totally different subject, which is some close to our heart. But it is related, because I think a lot of the feelings that have coming up around this is having to do with the children and the rights of children, because I feel there are so many children which have a lot of problems. People talk about, the educational system and how we have kids which are not problem solvers anymore. And, when there was that recent whole discussion about immigration, and schools were reporting that a lot of the foreign students were not coming anymore because they were worried about their visas not being renewed and whatever. And industry, especially the tech industry, was expressing real worry about not having enough students who then graduate college to pull from. And we have a lot of children growing up in this country. So it's not that we don't have enough people, but there have been so many studies again made how children learn and how children thrive. And being in a freer environment, exposed to a lot of things, having the opportunity to just sit there and dream or play in the mud and whatever, is cited over and over and over again as so important for mental development, for problem solving, for all of those things.
Right.
And you know what? That does not happen if you're in a daycare situation. And I'm not blaming the daycare at all, because if you have, I have like sometimes all three of my grandchildren over, and it's a lot of work to make sure they don't get hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you have the responsibility for somebody else's 12 children or 20 children, I understand that you want to keep it safe. Most parents don't appreciate to get their children back covered in mud.
Yeah,
so there's just a lot of things you can do.
And think about that one-on-one exchange that you have with a young child, them asking you questions, you answering the questions. As a parent, of course, you know that child better than anybody else. And really, no one can kind of cater to their needs better, really, than someone who knows the kid. Also, if you have so many children, like you were saying, in the daycare situation, it's a schedule thing, Now's the time for lunch, now's the time for our craft, now's the time for our nap. And where is the time for these little questions that come up along the way? Many times it's just not there. So I don't know, it's the bonding thing. It's also learning empathy, and in my mind, can you think of a better root cause for wars and crimes and murder and all the awful things that are happening in the world today?
That's making a big leap, because wars and crimes and murder has been with us for a long time. So I don't even want to go that far, but just even personal happiness and fulfillment. I'm not saying that necessarily having a mother at home or a father at home is like an insurance to have a child with which is more secure, let's put it that way. I think my main point is to have that choice. It's not about if you want to take the choice or not, but to have the choice and being still considered a full member of society. And the other part is to have the choice to continue a career and not have to give up your children. So if you had a workplace and childcare is close enough that if your baby needs to nurse, you can go and nurse a baby. And or have lunch with your children, or have that ride to and from work together to have conversations going as they get a little bit older, have more remote working situation. And every kid is different, but my daughter's friend, her baby is now maybe coming up 2, but she comes with her to the office, and they work in real estate, and there's 3 people working in the office, and they all kind of allows that little toddler to toddle around and hand her some if she needs some, or if she needs to be held for a little bit. There's somebody's there. And I get it. Not everybody works in that situation. If you're...
But the thing is, we don't... Too often we haven't even understand that might be an important goal to have more workplaces and more options for people to have their children with them so that they can interact more with them and not have to give them to somebody that they're paying to raise them.
Well, I think that was my whole point. And we obviously haven't made it very clear or have made the point very good. But in my thinking, the feminist movement has pushed everybody to perform in a similar way to male counterparts instead of saying we are different and let's create different opportunities for us. And I want to say even family as a whole, because there certainly was not a model for men to stay home and raise their children. And I do know of more and more at-home dads or not necessarily at-home dads, but like you were saying, dads which working part-time and take over the care of the children. But a lot of companies wouldn't allow it, or if somebody gets sick. And then, so on one, we would like to see a different model, how businesses are set up to allow for the presence of a family life besides a business life. And, and maybe that's just even the whole societal thinking said, you are your job. If you ask people don't ask usually, who are you? They're asking, what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's that whole defining ego by like, I'm a podcaster, that's who I am, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of saying I am a woman who happens to podcast,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And do all those other things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that's one, to enable that to be different, allow men to take on roles and be still supported in it. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
I'm making sense
Yeah,
here.
yeah, you are. I think in the past, roles and labels have really gotten in the way of so much human advancement, and certainly on the side of women, for instance. So it's like a letting go of roles and labels, and maybe just starting looking at people as they are, and not just defining them by what they do. Which again, personally, I can't think honestly there isn't for me a more important role that I've had in my life than more important than being a parent. We forget what a huge impact we have, what a huge opportunity we have to impact the world in a positive way by raising our children the best way that we can, and really thinking of what is absolutely best for them and doing our best to provide that for them. We take that for granted. We don't realize we negate this humongous role because, like you were saying, we define everything by what job we have and how much, how successful we are in our career. So I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me, especially, and I don't think it's sustainable. What kind of society is sustainable that doesn't really, really value the upbringing and doing the best they can for their children? That's just basic sustainability, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I think we completely agree. And I think this is a core point we were trying to make in that whole conversation.
Yeah.
And so I would like to invite again our listeners to chime in on this and say, well, how do you feel about that?
Mm-hmm.
Is it about, who's, I hear a lot about the write-off, and it's like, okay, so whose rights are we talking about? And what does it all mean? And are we actually happy with what has happened?
Exactly.
Because I say I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm.
Well,
I don't think. Yeah. Go ahead.
See, we knew this was going to happen. Marianne and I have so much to say on this topic. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted to say, where is the kids' rights? The women, and I'm grateful, and I'm so grateful for all the women that have come before and done so much to fight for our rights as women to have these choices and have these opportunities. But children can't speak for themselves. And where are the people that are speaking for them, making sure that they're always safe, making sure that they have the best nutrition and the best possible start that they can have? To me, it's fallen by the wayside. Of course, we don't live in a time where in our country anyway, we don't see that we live in the time where children have to work in factories like they did around the turn of the century. But we do live in a time where there is child slavery all over this world. There's all kinds of awful things happening to children all the time. And who is championing their rights? Who is protecting them out there? You know, it's an important question we have to ask.
I believe so too. Yeah. And I think that's usually where my whole gut feeling comes from around there, because, well, maybe I'm just really tuned into wanting to fight for the underdog. And, you know, to me, the kids are the underdogs. There's the innocent bystander, which might not be getting what they need. And again, that's not a personal judgment. It's like, let's set it up differently as society said. We are more child-centered instead of just taking care of the kids, is to actually care for the kids. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a big difference. You're right. Yeah.
So I think we're done.
You sure?
Because,
I don't know.
No, I mean, we could talk a lot more about it, but I would really love to hear what you guys are thinking about this, you know, because it's certainly something we have to think about in so many ways. I mean, just the other day I was watching some television about politics, and there's a woman Congress person who kept getting interrupted when she was asking the questions, you know, and you look around and we are ruled by predominantly males. And so, you know, there is a lot of this going, what have we achieved so far? We're working outside of the home for the most part. We're still doing most of the work inside the home. We are still the ones which are usually getting the duty of going to the doctor, taking time off when a child is sick, you know, all of that stuff. So equality hasn't reached us yet.
Well, and you made that point earlier, and I want before we close this conversation, I do think this is an important topic about men, how men have suffered in this. I mean, we do talk about, you know, that it's been a male-dominated society, and, you know, women have been oppressed. You know, this is all true, but the feminine side of the man has been oppressed too. You know, it's the feminine in all of us that's been oppressed. And you can't have a sustainable, healthy, functioning society if we're so balanced towards one thing, and you know, not having that feminine, you know, viewpoint and ability to do those things for both men and women. And to be honest, I mean, some of these places that we've taken feminism, I think, are very self-destructive. I mean, this idea that white males are evil. I'm sorry, it's no. That's the wrong way to go. You know, they've suffered too. They've suffered too by this oppression of the feminine. So. And all males have. So that I just wanted to throw that out there, because I even read a statistic where, like, here in this country, that the average age of the white male has come down. You know, they're dying, you know, in larger numbers these days, and you know, I don't know why, but it does seem to be that. I don't know. There's a lot of negative energy put towards the white male, and I'm just tired of hearing about that. That's just not the way to go. We have to value everybody where they're at and allow people to make their own decisions, and just try our best to bring that loving, nurturing, feminine energy into it that could help heal us all.
That's a good one to close that topic on.
Yeah.
So let's get back into sharing a couple more tips from our listeners. And actually, so one tip here, this person is our listener, but he also was a guest on our show. And that's a show right before this with Carl Stanley. And in the conversation we had, he is talking about, among other things, how to live a bill-free life. And when you were saying how now we have to have two incomes, I had a whole bunch to say about that too. So, but I think that could be a whole different. I don't want to go down to the rabbit hole right now because there is so much to say about that. Right?
No, you're right, and I take that back. We don't have to have two incomes, but oftentimes we are under the impression that we do, and that's part of our mission here is to show people there are ways that you don't have to do that. So good point.
Yeah, and not necessarily about two incomes, but said maybe we don't need as much as we think we do.
Yes.
And be able to live an actually much freer life by using tips and Carl talks about it a lot in the podcast, how you cannot be truly free if you have also spills over your head, because then and actually, Janice's best friend, Jack Spirko, she really likes it.
I don't know if he would agree with that, but
No. But he's in your ear.
You know what? I have a picture of you with him, by the way. You could post it up with this podcast.
Well, Jack has a survival podcast, and he's actually the one who said to us, just do it. Just start podcasting. So thank you, Jack Spirko. But on his show, he talks a lot about freedom and how you can be a financial slave. And so Carl did in our episode, which was episode 101. I should remember because it was just this week. And before said so, he had answered one of our Facebook shout outs and gave us a tip. And his tip is to grow a moringa tree. And are you familiar with moringa, Janice?
Somewhat, but I'm sure I couldn't explain it like you can.
Well, there are some different varieties. And so the most popular or the most people know about is moringa. Okay, I'm going to put just a name, oleifera or something. So I'm going to spell it out. So you know which one it is. And the tree is supposed to be one of the miracle foods in the world. So you can use the green leaves to eat yourself. You can use the seeds for water purification. I mean, it just has tons and tons. It's a mulch plant. It's a fodder plant. And Carl was saying you can even grow it in cold climates by mulching it really, really well in the winter time. It's a very drought-resistant tree, so it's originally from Africa, I believe.
Boy, I didn't think I could grow it up here in Big Bear. Wow.
Well, I don't know. And one way with a lot of those things might also be that you grow it in a pot and bring it inside during the winter.
Go. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't think it was possible either. I always thought it was like San Diego area and Florida were the areas you could, and maybe Texas.
So what are all the great benefits of this wonderful moringa tree?
So it's good food. It's good medicine. You said heat, so I'm assuming you can chop it down. It's fast growing. Not so much when it doesn't get any water. So there's a drought resistant part comes in. But I have heard from people in Florida that they said, oh, it just grows so fast I can keep chopping it. But so you can burn the wood off it. It cleans water. It's used to make lamp oil, which I didn't know. So that was really interesting. It improves the soil.
Wow.
And then, like we already said, it's a great mulch plant. So that's one part of improving the soil, but also the root system and so forth. Animal fodder. It tastes delicious. They also call it horseradish plant. So it has a little bit of a bite to it, and it's used a lot in Asian cooking. So it must be in Asia as well. So I'm not the high expert on this tree, just enough that I have 3 growing in my yard. And I had one before, which I planted in an area where chickens could get to it, and they demolished it in no time. So I know chickens love it.
Well, great tip by Carl once again.
Stanley. Yeah. And let's just do a really short one. This one, we have to dedicate a show on this whole tip some other time. So let's not talk too much about it. We just throw it out to you, and you can go, ooh, or oh, that sounds like a good idea. Rabia Anna says, start with a compost toilet. And actually, in this show, we also talked about compost toilets with cars.
I remember him talking about a toilet incinerating toilet. So I was very curious about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So that's my tips.
Wonderful. Thanks, you guys, for bringing us wonderful tips, sharing them with us on Instagram and on our Facebook group Sustainable Living Tips, Tools, and Tactics. You guys rock. Wonderful.
I agree.
Yeah, wonderful tips, wonderful conversations there. You guys can meet a lot of really great people that have much more information than Marianne and I do, even because it's a community, you know. So many heads are better than two. So we totally encourage you to come and join our Facebook group there, Sustainable Living Tips, Tools, and Tactics, and also follow us on Instagram because we are sharing a lot of information and photos and stuff. I think you guys would be interested there as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So anything else, Mariana? Was there anything else going on this week or anything you wanted to share?
Well, there's lots going on, but I think I want to keep it for next time we get together. So I want to talk about sustainability sites and different ideas I have, what we want to do with you all, how we can get more into each other's ears.
Yeah. We started our news. Excuse me. Our our Sustainable Living Geeks Tribe email that if you have signed up for our e-newsletter on our website that you will be getting, and we're going to be sharing some wonderful tips there with you guys going forward. Mariana got it started this weekend. Yay!
I know. I felt like such a fool because I did a Facebook Live and I'm like, oh, I did an email. I'm so excited. And it's like, oh, I didn't specify that I did this group email and got into this crazy software and set it up and, managed to hopefully get, also text, which is as placemaker in there. And, you get emails sometimes which have like weird text in there because those email providers have templates. And if you forget one part, then it just gets wonky,
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, people think I'm really smart. Oh, she emailed. And yeah, so we got our first email out to you.
Yeah.
And as we are doing that, I have like a lot of ideas, what we would like to share with you. And our whole thing is we really, really want to build community with you all. And it's so exciting to have interactions and to get closer. So all of that is great.
Yes. So on that note, if you guys have any interests, any that you think you would like us to see us cover on the podcast, please let us know because we really do pay attention and we love to share your stories and we want to make more and more opportunities to share what's going on with you guys and your interests and answer your questions as well. So please do give us some feedback. If you can either do it on Facebook, on our Facebook page, in our Facebook group. You can do it on Instagram. You can send us an email. Which is the best email to reach us at, Mariana?
Well, we actually have a little section on our website now as contact us. Mm-hmm. So you can use that. That's the easiest. Yeah. And you don't have to write anything down. Just go to the website. And otherwise, use a sustainable living podcast at gmail.com. Okay. Then that would be good. We're doing a lot of behind the scenes work in changing stuff. So probably soon we give you some other emails too, but right now it's all in flux to be around, so we don't want to mess with it. Yeah.
We're also on Twitter, so one way or another you guys can find us. We want to hear from you.
Yep. All right.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thanks. You guys have a great week. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for joining us on the Sustainable Living Podcast today. If you like what you heard, please consider going over to patreon.com and supporting us with a donation there. Take care.